Before we begin this night prayer, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like this video. God, sit with me in the dark, not to banish it, not to replace it with something brighter, not to fill it with answers or solutions, but simply to be here. Not every night needs rescuing. Not every silence needs to be broken. Sometimes all I long for is to know that I am not the only one in the room, that this breath I carry isn't the only one stirring the air, that this heartbeat isn't the only rhythm echoing through the stillness. And even if you don't say a word tonight, if you just stay, that might be enough. I used to think faith meant always seeing a way forward, always sensing the flicker of light up ahead. But I'm learning something else tonight. Maybe faith is also being willing to stay where I am, without clarity, without momentum, without a plan, just staying, because I believe you're here too. And the longer I sit in this stillness with you, the more I realize I don't need to fight the dark. I don't even need to fix it. I can let it be what it is, soft, unmoving, unresolved, and still feel safe, not because it's easy, but because you're not afraid of it. And if you're not afraid, maybe I don't have to be either. I've spent so many nights trying to chase the light, trying to fill every moment with noise, activity, distraction, as if stillness were dangerous, as if quiet were a sign of absence, as if shadows meant something had gone wrong. But I'm slowly unlearning. You're teaching me that darkness isn't always an enemy. Sometimes it's just a boundary. Sometimes it's a signal to pause. Sometimes it's the only space quiet enough to notice what's been there all along, like a whisper under the surface, like a presence I wasn't sure I was allowed to name. But here you are, not rushing, not fixing, not vanishing the dark, just sitting with me. And you feel close. Not loud close, not miracle close, not sunrise close, but warm, like the presence of someone who doesn't need to prove anything, like a quiet hand resting nearby, like a stillness that is no longer empty. I don't even know if I'm praying the right way tonight. I don't have eloquent words. I don't have a neat theology, but I have this ache in my chest, and I'm not hiding it. I have this quiet in my room, and I'm not running from it. I have this moment, and I'm not trying to escape it. I'm here, and I think you are too. I'm not asking you to show me how this ends. I'm not asking you to pull me out or to rearrange the pieces or to speed up time. I'm just asking you to stay, like this, unhurried, unbothered, unconditionally present. Because something sacred happens when I stop demanding a different reality. Something opens when I stop narrating over what I feel. There's something holy in the honesty of just saying, I'm here, and it's dark. And there's something healing in knowing you already knew that you didn't need me to explain. You just came to sit with me, and I'm letting that be enough. No crescendo, no breakthrough, no beam of light from heaven. Just breath and warmth and stillness shared between us. If that's what this night holds, then I welcome it. If that's all that happens, then maybe it's more than enough. Because I'm not alone, because I'm not performing, because I don't need to earn this comfort. I just need to allow it, to trust that you want to be here, even in the parts I'm still unsure about, to believe that you see me, even when my eyes are closed, to accept that even now, especially now, I'm held. So don't worry about fixing me tonight. I'm not asking to wake up changed. I'm not promising to have more faith by morning. I'm not promising anything. I'm just resting in the fact that I don't have to be anything more than I am. Even here, in the pause, in the ache, in the ambiguity, I'm not beyond your reach. You've found me, or maybe you never left. Maybe you've been sitting with me longer than I realized. Maybe this isn't the beginning of your presence. Maybe it's the first moment I've stopped long enough to feel it. And that changes something. Not everything, but something. I'm not holding my breath anymore. I'm not scanning the dark for an exit. I'm not pacing the edges of my mind. for solutions. I'm just here, letting you be here too. No pressure to perform, no pressure to pretend, just the softness of surrender, just the sacredness of company, just the quiet miracle of being known and not fixed, held, not hurried, loved, not lectured, sat beside, not scrutinized. That's the kind of God you are, and that's the kind of night I need. So here I am, not trying to be impressive, not trying to be brave, not trying to be faithful, just trying to be honest. I'm tired. I'm afraid of some things. I don't know how some of this will turn out, but I'm not alone. You're sitting with me. That's enough. Stay. Please stay. And if you already plan to, then let me be the one who stops looking for more and starts noticing what's already here. You, in the dark, with me. Still, you are here, and I am breathing with you. The room keeps its quiet, an honest, unspectacular quiet, the kind that holds the things I won't say out loud and the things I'm not yet ready to name. Tonight, I'm not trying to fix the dark or make it mean something heroic. I'm only trying to be small enough to notice how you make room for me inside it. I feel the weight of tiredness more like an old coat than like a shackle, and somehow that is a mercy. The dark has edges, but it is not a prison. It is a place of particular clarity, where the usual clamor thins and what's essential gets louder by contrast. In that thinning I hear the steady fact of your nearness, not announced by fanfare, but by the simple fact of being, like a companion's breath on the pillow, like the slow warmth of a hand laid down next to mine. I bring the messy parts with me, the questions that won't let me sleep, the regrets that keep looping, the half-formed fears that feel large because they are kept under the cover of night. I used to believe that silence meant absence, that if I couldn't hear the answer, then you must have stepped away. But tonight, the silence feels differently. It feels like a tension without interruption. It feels like a patient presence that allows what's hidden to surface in its own time. You are not impatient with my smallness. You do not hurry the unweaving of my tangled thoughts. You do not insist I be whole before you sit down beside me. You start there, with me incomplete, with me honest, with me exactly where I am. There are things I'm afraid will be exposed in the dark, how little control I hold, how many of my plans are brittle, how much of my identity is built on performance. But the dark also keeps me honest. It strips away the ornaments and shows me what I've been carrying out of habit or fear. And when those things are revealed, they do not vanish in shame. They are met. Your presence is like a doorway that stays open, not to let me flee the truth, but to let me breathe through it without collapsing. You sit with me as if nothing about me is surprising, and that steadies me more than any answer ever could. I'm learning that being with you in the dark is not passivity. It is a kind of training and trust. It is the practice of holding still while the world's need for explanation quiets. It is the discipline of letting feelings have their shape without forcing an immediate conclusion. You give me permission to feel the hollow places and to do so without shame, to let sorrow have space, to let anxiety make its noise, to let wonder rest beside doubt. In this room, under the hush, I can say aloud that I am afraid of losing people, afraid of failing, afraid of not being enough, and the confession does not thin your love. If anything, it draws that love closer, like a blanket folded and offered without condition. Sometimes I imagine the dark like a vast room in which you have arranged small lamps of memory and mercy. They aren't there to pierce the night, only to make certain corners visible, so I can move without stumbling. I walk from one lamp to another, a memory of kindness, a small victory, a laugh shared, and each one reminds me you've been arranging these luminous things long before I learned how to look. You've been attentive to the small mercies, the unnoticed graces, the tiny fingerprints of goodness in the ordinary. In the dark they sit like constellations, not needing explanation, only recognition. And when I name them, when I allow my tongue to map them, my chest loosens, and the night stops feeling like an accusation and starts feeling like a space that holds both what is hard and what is sacred. There's also a tenderness in how you keep company with my failures. I'm tempted to perform repentance as if sorrow alone were currency, but you teach me a softer economy. True change begins when sorrow is not weaponized, but received. You do not demand that I dramatize my remorse to prove I care. You simply accept it and then help me learn what to do with it. It's strange to think repentance could be gentle, but here it is. A quiet turning, a slow correction, a new willingness to choose differently without theater. In the dark, your correction feels like a hand on my shoulder, not a rod. It doesn't humiliate, it reorients. When I'm honest, there are nights I want you to banish every shadow because shadows make me imagine catastrophes. But there are other nights when I finally see that shadows are where memory, grief, longing, and hope coexist, complicated and true. Sitting with you in the dark means I am allowed to carry the contradictions without needing to resolve them right away. Hope and grief can sit side by side without the ugly pressure to pick only one. I can feel grateful and afraid in the same moment, and you hold both facts without contest. That is a freedom I didn't know I needed. The freedom to contain complexity and still be loved. I bring my quiet triumphs too, the small resistances I won today, the times I spoke or didn't speak, and the outcome was grace. The minutes when I chose patience and felt stronger for it. They seem small under the dome of night, but they are not insignificant. You lean in to hear them as if small things are of great interest to you. You celebrate the tiny faithful acts that are easy to dismiss in daylight. Your attention to them teaches me to value the incremental, the barely noticed, the slow accrual of goodness. It reshapes how I measure a life. It makes me see that courage is sometimes the smallest, steady step repeated, not the grand leap. There are nights when anger rises, not dramatic hurled anger, but a low ember of injustice or hurt. I'm tempted to throw a spotlight on it and examine it like a problem that must be solved immediately. Instead, here, I hold it and let it speak. You do not scold me for being angry. You do not call me childish for feeling hurt. You let me feel the heat and then gently guide me to understand what the anger is protecting. Maybe a boundary, maybe a grief, maybe an unmet longing. You help me translate the rawness into words that can be healed, into action that is wise rather than reactive. Your presence in the dark turns combustible emotion into something that can be seen and tended, not exploded. Part of being in the dark with you is learning to rest without waiting for tomorrow's checklist to be complete. The to-do list glows faintly like a distant city, but I am learning to not be owned by it. Rest becomes a radical act of humility, an admission that I am not indispensable, an acceptance that my worth is not measured by productivity, a faith that what I cannot do tonight will meet me with mercy in the morning. You sit with me in that humility, not to shame my ambition, but to remind me that rest is also sacred work. When I lay down the urgency and allow my shoulders to drop, I find that breath returns to its natural rhythm and that my sense of being held becomes less conditional. Teach me, in this dark, to love the quiet rhythms of ordinary time. Teach me to notice the small fidelities, the silence kept, the call returned later, the apology offered, the door opened, that stitch a life together. Teach me to be patient with the slow work of grace in others and in myself. Teach me to value presence over performance, depth over spectacle, and the long, slow drip of kindness over the quick rush of approval. In the hush of this night, let the lessons sink in, not as lectures, but as a soft reshaping of my heart's architecture. And when the morning finally comes, if it does, let it not feel like a demand, but like a continuation. Let the light be not an eraser of the night, but an invitation to carry whatever was learned here into the day. The small mercies, the steadiness, the willingness to sit with uncertainty without panic. If I wake and the weight of the world resumes its clamor, remind me of this night, that there was a place where I was permitted to be small and messy and still known. Let that memory be like an anchor, quickening my breath when I forget where steadiness comes from. Until then, I will stay with you in the dark. I will let the room be as it is. I will not manufacture brightness where you have placed comfort. I will listen for the subtle notes of your nearness, the way a remembered kindness feels warmer in the chest, the way a future possibility glints softly like a distant shore. I will rest in the knowledge that sitting with you is not a passive wasteland, but an active sanctuary where the heart is remade in quiet, where courage is learned in small increments, where mercy grows in places the light rarely notices. Stay with me, sit with me, be the hush that keeps me whole. You are here in ways my words cannot fully shape. I know that by the way my chest unclenches when I stop trying to explain. Tonight, I want to fold everything I am into your presence, the tiredness that settles in my bones, the thin thread of hope I keep clutching, the shame I tuck away under good manners and place it on the small altar of this room. I am not asking for a tidy theology or a dramatic unburdening. I want what I've learned from you in quieter hours, that presence itself can be medicine, that the simple fact of you attending to me changes the geometry of my fear, making space where once there was only crowding. In this dark, stripped of performance, I practice a truer humility. I admit how little I have to give tonight, and how gratefully I accept the gift of being held anyway. Sometimes I imagine you not as a glare of correction, but as a warmth that gathers around the edges of my life, the kind of heat that doesn't push or scorch, but makes brittle places flexible again. You soften the places that have been hardened by survival, and in the softening, there's room for gentleness toward myself. I've been my own hardest taskmaster. I believe that brokenness is the symptom of failure, but under your quiet watch, I am learning to call brokenness by another name: rawness. Rawness asks for hand-washing, not punishment. Rawness needs tending rather than analysis. And when I bring my raw places to you, they do not feel scandalous. They feel human. They feel like the parts of me you have always intended to mend slowly and carefully. There are stories I tell myself in daylight that unravel here. The script that says I must have answers, that if I pause I will be forgotten. That productivity proves worth. These lines fall away when the night pulls its curtain close. In their place, new sentences try to be born. That soulfulness matters more than output. That fidelity to small acts is a truer metric than applause. That being present to one person is a holy thing. You teach me by example, not by booming correction. You keep company without condition, and that steadiness rewrites my instincts. I find my hands unclenching around ambitions that are not mine. I watch the need to perform loosen its grip. The dark becomes a classroom where the lesson is simple and stubborn. Presence trumps proof. Forgiveness sits near the center of this silence, less like a verdict and more like an unfolding. I come with brittle confessions, things I did, things I left undone, words I wish I hadn't spoken, and instead of a verdict, I feel the possibility of reformation. You do not erase memory, you illuminate it in a way that lets me see what to change. There is an economy here that I did not understand. Grace does not cheapen responsibility, it funds it. Because I have been forgiven, I can attempt again without the weight of annihilation pressing on every choice. In the hush I learned that repentance can be a tender education, one that trains my hands to act differently rather than shames them into paralysis. I am learning to trust the slow work of healing. I have wanted quick fixes, dramatic revelations, overnight transformations. The night, patient and unflinching, shows me the truth. Hearts are not renovated like rooms. They are coaxed like seeds. The soil must be turned gently, water applied with care, and time given without impatience. You are the gardener who waits while roots search and do their quiet work. Sometimes I want to hurry the growth, to force green where it is not yet season. But sitting with you, I begin to accept that seasons have their own timing, and that trust includes the willingness to remain in the unseen care of gradual change. There is a tenderness toward others that the dark cultivates in me. Removed from the spotlight of judgment, I can see the complexity of those who hurt me and the brokenness behind their hardness. Anger is still present. It surfaces and speaks, but it is tempered by compassion that did not exist when I was bright and busy and certain. You teach me not to confuse discernment with contempt. I can set boundaries and still hold a posture of love. I can protect my soul and still hope for the healing of another. That paradox is part of being made whole, learning to keep both edges, justice and mercy, in proper relation. Sometimes the future seems like a cliff edge. Sometimes it feels like a door I do not know how to open. Tonight the future is a distant country I cannot map, and I do not apologize for my ignorance. I offer, instead, my limited planning, my humble intentions, my willingness to be guided step by step. If courage is required tomorrow, let it be of the kind that rises from many small, ordinary acts rather than one theatrical defiance. If peace must be found, let it arrive as a quiet accumulation of choices that refuse panic, a breath before a decision, a refusal to catastrophize, a hand extended instead of a word flung. Teach me the steady art of living, so that when morning comes, I am less surprised by grace and more practiced at receiving it. Before sleep takes me, teach me to carry a single thread from this dark into the day. The permission to be imperfect and still loved. Let that thread run through my interactions like a secret seam, unseen but strengthening. When impatience threatens, let me remember the slow whisper of tonight. When fear crouches like an animal at the threshold, let me recall the warmth of being kept. When I meet someone who is hurting, let the memory of being accompanied in my own darkness make me less quick to lecture and more ready to sit beside them. Keep me, not because I am earned, but because you are faithful. Keep me, not as a project to finish, but as a person to cherish. Let the rhythm of tonight, breath, pause, invitation, acceptance become a rudimentary prayer I can hum without thinking. Let it shape the way I enter rooms, the way I speak to myself, the measure I use to judge success. If tomorrow unspools with noise and demand, let this night be a hidden well I can return to, refilling me with a kind of courage that does not shout, but endures. So stay, not as a rescuer who must remove every shadow, but as a companion who makes the shadows less threatening by simply not leaving. Sit with me while the dark does its slow, honest work. Sit with me while memories shift and the heart reorders itself toward what is true. Sit with me until sleep gathers me like a blanket, and I trust that waking will find me steadier. I do not require eloquence or miracles tonight, only your unhurried presence, and that will be more than enough. You are still here, and in that staying something in me loosens that I did not know was bound. Tonight I do not need a sermon or a plan. I need the simplicity of presence that does not demand performance. Your company makes the edges of my fear less jagged. It does not smooth them over, but holds them gently so I can look without flinching. In the dark, I am learning a new grammar of hope, not loud declarations, but small verbs. To breathe, to wait, to notice, to receive. Those verbs accumulate into a steadiness that outlasts the quick fixes I used to chase. I think of the ways I have flinched from nights like this, as if darkness were always a threat. I build routines of noise and distraction to avoid intimacy with what is true inside me. But here, with you, the distractions fall away not because I banish them, but because something more trustworthy occupies the space they once filled. You offer me a different substitute, not escape, but acceptance, not solution, but companioning. That changes the shape of the evening. I can let down my armor without fearing dereliction. In the soft of your presence, my defenses become unnecessary tools I no longer wield, and I find muscles I forgot I had. The small muscles of tenderness and self-forgiveness. There are particular sorrows tonight that press on my ribs, losses I can't yet soften, words I left unsaid, expectations that crumbled. They are heavy and specific, not generic griefs that can be explained away with platitudes. You do not flatten them into cliches. Instead, you name them with a familiarity that feels like kindness. You sift through the details with patient fingers, acknowledging the sting without turning away. It matters that you know the shape of my particular ache. It matters that the story I carry is not reduced to a lesson. You witness it, and in being witnessed there is relief. Relief is not always joy. Sometimes it is simply the permission to be as I am, without hurry. I bring also the small, almost embarrassing joys, the coffee that tasted like grace this morning, the unexpected kindness that arrived in a text, the laugh shared that still echoes. They are fragile lights, easily forgotten in trials. Yet you honor them, giving them space at the table of my attention. You teach me to gather those little lights into a chain I can carry past the gloom, and when I do, the night does not seem singularly oppressive. Instead, it becomes a field where both sorrow and gratitude can grow alongside one another. There is no competition. Both are true, and both are tended by your steadying presence. Forgiveness moves through me like a slow current. There are patterns I keep returning to, old defenses and hasty words that still surprise me with their persistence. I have tried to be better by sheer will, and often will has its place, but will alone is brittle. Tonight, I feel a softer impulse, the desire to return again and again, not to prove change, but to practice it. You sit with that repetition, not irritated by my failures, but delighted by the repeated attempt. That is revolutionary. A God who welcomes my persistent efforts without tallying them against me. It frees me from the tyrant of perfection and into a rhythm of honest improvement, where small faithful choices compound into new habit. There is a tenderness toward those I love that grows here. When I lie awake thinking of them, their needs, their suffering, their stubbornness, my mind usually becomes a theater of solutions. Tonight the theater is quieted. Solutions will come in time, but first I want to learn to hold them. I want the humility to accept that sometimes being present is more useful than having the right answer. To sit with someone's pain without trying to rewrite it is a skill I am learning by watching. It is a way of loving that refuses urgency and instead practices patience. It is an offering of time, not advice, and it is sometimes the clearest form of grace. Teach me to carry the discipline of this night into the hours that want to steal it. There will be mornings of clamor and days that demand quick thinking and rapid repair. Let the muscle of quiet endurance I build now translate into those moments. Let me remember this posture when impatience claws at my edges, to breathe, to name, to refuse the lie that speed equates to worth. Help me to choose rest wisely, to work with integrity, to be present without collapse. Let the night's small lessons be seeds that root in the ordinary, so that my day is not simply an echo, but a continuation. I am afraid, sometimes, that the darkness will return with an unfamiliar face, an old despair in new clothes. In those hours, remind me that you have sat with me through every variant of that fear, and that each time the sitting has changed something. You do not promise that the night will never come again. You promise that when it does, you will come with me. Let that be more than a theological phrase. Let it be a felt reality that steadies my pulse. When panic rises like a tide, I will breathe into the memory of you being here, and that memory will act like a dam, not permanent, but long enough to make wise choice. There are practical things I need to trust you with. Relationships that wobble under strain. Decisions that feel too large. Work that will ask more than I feel able to give. I place them here in the dark, not as surrender to laziness, but as a disciplined handing over, a careful placing of burdens into hands that can hold them without breaking. Teach me the difference between abdication and entrustment. Teach me how to rest in courage. Let me learn to plan with humility and to act with the confidence that comes from being accompanied, not from pretending to possess all outcomes. Before I let sleep find me, give me a small clarity I can carry. One thing to remember when I wake. It could be a phrase, a single image, a short prayer, anything that will anchor me to this moment of being held. Let that anchor be both gentle and firm, something that will call me back when I lose my way in the morning's hurry. Maybe it will be the memory of your hand near mine, the heat of shared breath in the dark, the sound of a half-remembered kindness. Whatever it is, make it portable so that when the day presses, I have something to hold on to. I do not want to make this night larger than it is, turning tenderness into spectacle. I want it to be a humble lamp that lights my next step. So I will not demand revelation. I will accept the small gifts, a softer heart, steadier breath, a willingness to try again. I will take these out with me like a simple, practical kit for the day. If hope grows, let it be quiet and rooted. If courage appears, let it be patient and durable. If love comes, let it be not showy, but faithful. Stay then, not to perform miracles for the sake of my comfort, but to teach me how to live with what is true. Sit here while I let go of the illusions I've been rehearsing. Sit while I practice forgiveness. Sit while I cradle my small victories and name them. Sit while I learn to be a companion to others in their nights, as you have been to me in mine. When sleep finally takes me, let it be a soft passing into recovery, not an escape, but a continuation of trust. Keep vigil over the places in me that are tender. Do not allow them to be trampled by busyness. Keep me until morning, and then some, not because I deserve it, but because you are faithful. And if morning does not feel like arrival, but like continuation of the same struggle, let this night be a living memory rather than a mere dream. Let the fact that you sat with me be an operative reality, one I can touch again when needed. Teach me to remember your presence like a practice skill, effortless, reliable, accessible. Help me to call on it, not as a last resort, but as a first resource. For now, I will rest in the hush. I will let the dark be itself without making it a problem. I will let you be near without requiring performance. I will let the heart learn its slow beats under the tenderness of being kept. Stay with me, God. Sit with me in the dark until sleep gathers me like a soft cloak, and then continue to keep watch in the place between my breaths. You are still here. I notice it in the small things. The way the room no longer feels like an accusation, the way my breath can find its own timing without my meddling, the way my hands loosen their grip on the needless hurry that usually lives inside me. Tonight I am learning how to be quieter without becoming smaller, to accept the hush as a form of presence rather than a punishment. It is strange and tender to realize that being seen by you in the dark does not call for performance. It calls for honesty, for the simple, unadorned truth of what I am. Bring with me the names that ache. There are people whose faces I still carry like unfinished sentences, relationships that thread through my mind in the long hours when everything else sleeps. Some of these threads are soft and warm, gratitude, apology received, a kindness returned, but others are frayed and sharp. I do not come with tidy solutions. I come with hands that want to mend but do not always know how. Sit with these knots. Teach me how to unknot without pulling the seam apart. Help me learn the languages that heal, the language of listening, of steady presence, of small consistent acts that build trust over time. Give me the courage to say what must be said and the humility to hold silence when it is better. There is a fear that haunts the edges of the night, the image of loss, the unexpected call, the email that changes everything. It arrives like a cold breeze that slips under the door. But sitting here, I am learning to meet fear without allowing it to take residence. Show me how to name it fully, to look at it squarely and say, this is fear, and then to place it beside the reality I know that I am accompanied, that I have breathed through worse, that mercy has been present in nights before. Give me a steadiness that is practical, not merely sentimental, an ability to plan without obsession, to make preparations without letting anxiety sharpen into paralysis. Teach me the fine art of being prepared and being peaceful at the same time. Let this darkness teach me new forms of language. When words fail, let gestures form their own prayers. A hand laid to the chest, a whispered memory, a vow to act kinder tomorrow. Teach me to pray without clanging syllables, to make petitions that are small and precise, to entrust degrees of care rather than trying to bargain for miracles. Let my prayer be a kind of attention, deliberate, patient, slow, that notices what needs tending and then takes one soft step toward it. In the practice of that attention, let my eyes be trained to the small mercies I often miss in daylight. Remind me that rest is not merely the absence of doing, but the presence of trust. So much of my life treats rest as indulgence or delay, as a thing to be earned after sufficient usefulness. Tonight I want the radical notion that rest is itself an act of faith, an acknowledgement that the world will continue under your care whether I am frantic or still. Give me permission to let my body and mind settle without guilt. Let sleep come as a healer, not an escape. Let the dreams that rise be the slow work of repair, not the replaying of anxieties. And if sleep does not come, teach me the discipline of staying awake with trust rather than with fret. Teach me too the economy of smallness. I have chased outcomes that are large and easily measured. I have confused obvious success with goodness. Let this night reframe what matters. The courage to apologize, the patience to listen when spoken to, the willingness to be late to a meeting because someone needed a kind word. Let me revalue the daily transactions that actually make life livable. Train my affection away from spectacle and toward fidelity. Show me how life is mostly a long series of small kindnesses, and that these, compounded, create endurance and beauty. In the dark I confront my desire for certainty. I want to know the map of tomorrow, to glance ahead and see the safe route, but certainty often freezes me into rigid plans that cannot bend when reality shifts. Teach me to hold convictions lightly, firm where they must be, supple where they must yield. Give me the art of operating with a core that is steady and a will that is flexible. When plans crumble, let my heart not crumble with them. Let it hold the center and adapt the edges. There are secrets in me I have not even admitted to my own waking mind. Tonight, in this hush, they want recognition. They are not dramatic revelations, but tired small shapes, longings that never found a voice, small resentments nursed like trophies, quiet dreams I was embarrassed to claim. Receive them without astonishment. Name them tenderly so they lose their power to define me. Help me sort what to act on and what to let rest. Teach me to steward desire with wisdom, to transform longing into practice rather than letting it calcify into regret. When anger comes, the slow, simmering kind that coils inside the ribs, do not let it become a furnace. Let it be a signal like smoke, drawing attention to an unmet need or a violated boundary. Give me the courage to tend the ember, to speak truth plainly, to set clear limits, to protect without poisoning. And when the ember cools, show me how to move from righteous heat into restorative action. Teach me how to apologize and how to receive apology. Teach me how to repair the fabrics I have torn, stitch by stitch with patience. Hold my disappointments with compassion. There are plans I banked on that fell through, promises I trusted that were not kept, seasons I expected to bloom that did not. I'm learning that disappointment is not a verdict on my worth. It is a teaching. It points to attachments I must rearrange and expectations I must unclench. Help me to grieve what is lost and to orient toward what remains. Let the shape of my life be flexible enough to welcome new possibilities, not brittle with the disappointment of the old. And finally, remind me of gratitude that is not a list but a posture. Gratitude that breathes, not the quick tick box of a morning routine. Let gratitude be a way of seeing, noticing the cup of tea, the text that came at the right time, the stranger's patience at the crosswalk. Let it be embedded in the way I move through the day, not merely an ornament I put on for appearances. Shape my heart so that gratitude underwrites my decisions, steadies my speech, and softens my judgment. As sleep draws near, gather my scattered intentions into a single small promise. To try again tomorrow, to be kinder in the small ways, to sit with people rather than fixing them, to return to you in the quiet when life pulls me away. Make this promise light enough to carry and strong enough to hold. Let it be the first breath of morning, not a demand, but a reminder. Stay with me now, not as a distant theology, but as a present companion. Sit with me until breath slackens and the body yields, and then keep watch over the tender places while I rest. If the night brings dreams, let them be gentle teachers. If the night brings no sleep, let it still be a place of quiet tending. Keep me safe in the small ways, the lock on the door, the rise and fall of breath, the memory of mercy. Let the fact that you sit in the dark with me be enough to steady my next step. You are here in the particular hush that knows my name without announcements. I fold myself into this small room and into the steadiness of you. I bring the thin, precise things that have been keeping vigil inside me. The brittle hopes, the soft resentments, the quiet requests I've been too ashamed to speak aloud. In the dark, I do not invent language of triumph. I only offer the truthful inventory of what is tender and what is raw. Sit with those things as they are. Do not hurry them into answers. Let them breathe in your company until their edges soften. There are memories that crowd the corners tonight, some bright and warm, some jagged and stingy. They come as flashes and as slow films, and I lay them down one by one. Teach me how to receive memory without being led by it. Teach me how to hold what happened without letting it harden my heart against what might yet come. In the presence of your quiet, I find that recollection can be a kind of sacrament, not to live in the past, but to learn from it, to keep what is good and to hand over the rest with an honest hand. Help me to untangle loyalty from habit, affection from obligation, so that my life is shaped by what truly matters, not by the weight of what I merely remember doing. I am learning a new patience with myself. For so long, I demanded progress measured by visibility, achievements, lists crossed off, applause. Tonight I see another metric, faithfulness in small repetitious things, the courage to return to welcome one more time, the decision to apologize again, to show up for the mundane. These acts are not glamorous, and sometimes they feel unnoticed, but under your watch they become the slow architecture of change. Teach me to trust accumulation, that kindness, repeated, becomes courage, that humility practiced becomes freedom, that mercy offered becomes a new habit of the heart. There are parts of me still raw from old hurts, places where the skin is thin. When I expose them, even in this private dusk, they sting. But your presence turns the sting into something manageable. You do not paint over the scab. You teach me to clean it gently, to lean into the discomfort long enough for new tissue to form. That is the work I want. Not the dramatic cure overnight, but the steady tending that lasts. Make me patient enough to do it, brave enough to show up for it, and tender enough to refuse the hard, quick fixes that leave scars in different shapes. Loneliness visits in particular forms. The ache of being unseen in a crowd, the fatigue of giving without replenishment, the hollow where a safe voice should be. Tonight I name it honestly. I am lonely. Your company is the proof that loneliness is not final, that being seen does exist. Sometimes the remedy is not filling the room with people, but recognizing the one who already fills it. Other times it is about learning to be present to others in ways that invite them near. Teach me how to seek connection without begging, how to offer hospitality without sacrificing myself, how to create spaces where others can land. Let my life become a place where the lonely might find rest. Teach me also the small courage of boundaries. I have sometimes mistaken being available for being good and generosity for approval. You teach me to give and to protect at the same time, to say no when necessary with the same dignity I give yes. Boundaries are not rejection. They are a form of stewardship over what I can love well. Show me how to make limits that preserve energy and invite health, how to refuse the demands that would hollow me, and how to respond kindly when others are disappointed. Give me the humility to revise them when I am too rigid, and the firmness to hold them when I am too porous. I confess the ways fear has been a tyrant, shaping my choices, shrinking my ventures, keeping me safe in ways that also keep me small. Tonight I will practice a different posture, small, brave acts taken despite fear. Let courage be incremental. Let it be the phone call I make when I'd rather not, the apology I offer when pride says I'm right, the minutes I give when I'd rather escape. Teach me that bravery is a muscle built by repetition, not a virtue that strikes like lightning. And when I fail to be brave, do not let shame be the response. Teach me to return and try again. There is tenderness for the world here. Not the sentimental kind, but the kind that notices detail. The tired cashier, whose smile is a small miracle. The child whose questions are jagged with longing. The neighbor who needs distance and dignity at once. Let my compassion be discerning. Let it bring help without humiliation, presence without pity, honesty without cruelty. Shape in me the ability to act in ways that restore rather than dominate, to listen enough to know what is truly helpful, and to act with patience when the right help arrives slowly. As sleep edges closer, gather these small commitments into a pocket I can carry. A readiness to offer one kindness tomorrow, a resolve to guard one boundary tenderly, a promise to return to you in a moment of need before I resort to frantic measures. Let these micro-promises become the scaffolding of a new day. They need not be large, they need only be done. If I wake and the world presses heavy, let this pocket unfold and give me one small practical tool, a breath, a phrase, a posture that recalls tonight's calm. Do not leave me with grand answers, leave me with what I can use. Teach me provision in the particulars. One steady thought when panic comes, one kind sentence to say to myself when criticism rises, one small action when inertia threatens. Make faith practical, make grace usable. Make mercy a habit, not a spectacle. Stay with me a while longer in this room. Sit beside my edges as they wobble and steady them with your quiet. Let me fall asleep to the rhythm of being known, not fixed, of being loved, not corrected. If dreams come, let them be gentle hands, arranging hope. If the night keeps me awake, Let the wakefulness be a kind of prayer, watchful, soft, surrendering. Keep watch with me until morning arrives, and teach me to carry the memory of this companionship into the day like a small lamp. You are still here, not as an idea, but as a manner of presence that alters the room. The darkness is no longer a thickness to cut through. It is a room with you in it, and that fact rearranges everything. My chest remembers a rhythm that is not my own, a steadier beat, patient and unhurried. In that rhythm, I begin to feel the small courage of staying with my feelings, staying with people instead of fleeing when things get hard, staying with the slow repair of what has been torn. Teach me this habit of staying. Let it become my first reflex instead of my last resort. There are tiny rituals I want to keep from tonight, not dramatic liturgies, but simple acts that anchor me, a hand pressed to the heart to feel the breath return, a whispered thank you for one small mercy, a choice to let go of a grievance for 1 hour and see what that produces. Let these be portable practices, quiet tools I can carry into meetings, into conversations, into the small battles that require not strategy but steady attention. When the day pushes and the world demands, let these habits be the soft infrastructure that prevents collapse. I bring with me the faces of those I love who are muddled or hurting. Sometimes my instinct is to fix, to solve, to make wrongs right instantly. But tonight I learned the value of accompaniment, to sit beside someone in their dark without needing to illuminate it for them. Teach me the subtler work of presence, to ask a good question, to listen without interrupting, to offer a cup when words fail, to be patient with silence until speech opens on its own. Let my attempts at care be less about performance and more about faithful attention. There is a stubbornness in me that confuses endurance with pride. I have learned to wear busyness as proof of worth. Let the night unteach that habit. Show me how to rest with dignity, how to accept help without shrinking, how to let relief in without bargaining for it. Make tenderness respectable in my life so that generosity toward myself is not a luxury, but a discipline. Teach me to let small mercies land and to repay them by passing them on. When regret rises, let it be met without collapse. I have done things I wish I hadn't. I have left things undone I now miss. But regret that destroys is not repentance. It is a stone that makes me smaller. Turn regret into a teacher. Let it furnish me with clearer aims, humbler steps, and a softer tongue. Give me the courage to make amends where I can, and the wisdom to accept that some things are irretrievable. In both cases, help me to lean into what can be changed and to grieve what cannot, without turning either grief or attempt into self-annihilation. There are practical burdens I will wait to carry. Decisions, small tasks, relationships that need tending. Help me to parcel them well. Teach me to sort urgency from importance, to schedule mercy the way I schedule meetings, to make time for restoration the way I make time for deliverables. Let discipline be generous, not a rigid ruler, but a generous plan that honors my limits and trusts process. Give me the clarity to know what I can do well today, and the peace to let other things wait. Sometimes I imagine you as a light that refuses to glare, a presence that makes contours visible enough to move without obliterating mystery. With that light, show me the next right thing. Not the whole map, just the step I can take with honesty and love. If that step is small, a phone call, a message, a quiet apology, make it feel as significant as a mountain moved. Help me to stop equating impact only with scale. Teach me to recognize the moral weight of small, consistent acts. Teach me repentance that is gentle and repair that is patient. When I hurt others, give me the courage to say so plainly and the humility to stay with consequences long enough for trust to be rebuilt. When others hurt me, shake my heart So response is measured, brave, and compassionate, not a mirror of harm, but a possibility for restoration. Let justice in my life be shaded by mercy, and mercy be disciplined by truth. As sleep approaches, give me a simple prayer to carry, a phrase I can repeat when panic comes near, a sentence that centers me without requiring explanation. Maybe it will be 3 words, "You are here." Maybe it will be a breath pattern in 2 counts, out 3. Whatever form it takes, make it a reliable hinge back into the steadiness I felt tonight. Let it be a habit that interrupts spirals and returns me to presence. Hold the vulnerable places in me like a gardener holds tender shoots. Do not let them be trampled by noisy days. Tend them with care, watering the small acts of courage and sheltering them from the hail of other people's urgency. Help me to recognize the signs of growth and to celebrate the slow victories that too often go unnoticed. Teach me to mark progress with gratitude rather than comparison. And when morning comes, do not let it steal this night's lessons into the background. Let them be visible threads woven into the first decisions I make. Make my first choices calm, the tone of my greetings, the patience in my speech, the restraint in my judgments. Let the memory of being accompanied in the dark shape my demeanor so that I am less reactive and more steady, less performative and more present. If sometimes the darkness returns and feels relentless, remind me that endurance is not born alone. You have been sitting with me through many such nights. Each time I have been slightly different in the morning. Let that cumulative change be real, not spectacular, but true. Let the memory of your being here compile into a slow assurance that steadies my hands and clears my sight. Now rest with me a little longer. Be the hush that teaches, the hand that steadies, the presence that outlasts all my rehearsed anxieties. Keep watch over the small chambers of my heart where tender things grow. Keep me in a quiet confidence that does not need proof, only companionship. When sleep finally gathers me, let it be a gentle transfer into repair. And if I wake before dawn, let the first breath remember this room and the fact that I was not alone in it. Let that remembered company be my preparation for the day, a soft armor and a practical power, quiet and true. You are still here, and that simple fact rearranges how I measure the night. I used to count darkness by the ways it frightened me. Tonight, I mark it by the ways you steady me inside it. There is a quality to your company that is not loud, but is insistently kind, as if patience itself had learned to sit and listen. In that listening, my scattered worries feel less urgent, because they are not tasked with proving anything to you. They are allowed to be what they are. Small urgencies, tired stories, the slow ache of grown-up losses. You do not dismiss them. You let them be without turning them into an accusation. That allowance is salvage. Bring with me the tangled obligations, the lists I carry like armor, the promises I made because I could not say no, the obligations that now weigh like iron. Teach me to unlace that armor without show me how to keep the promises that matter and how to disentangle from those that were never mine to bear. Give me the discernment to see which ties are life-giving and which are merely bindings I mistook for loyalty. And when I must step away, give me words that hold dignity and truth, so the parting does not wound but clarifies. Tonight, I notice how small choices accumulate into the person I become. A withheld harsh word, an extra minute given without checking a phone, a reluctant apology. Each of these is a stitch. Let me love the stitching. Let me become a careful maker of small repairs. I want a life built of these quiet stitches, not one of occasional grand gestures. Teach me the craftsmanship of everyday faithfulness. Help me to value the interior labor of gentleness more than the exterior applause of spectacle. There is an old loneliness I carry that has the shape of unasked questions. Will someone remember me Am I secretly disappointing those I love? Will my trying ever be enough? In the dark, these questions lose their theatrical quality and sit as soft, honest worries. You do not answer them with slogans. You answer by presence. You make a room at the center of me where remembering and being remembered meet. In that room, I find proof that I am not invisible, that memory includes mercy, that effort does not go unnoted. Let that truth sink into the places where doubt has nested. Teach me how to hold contradictions. I am grateful and wounded. I am hopeful and afraid. I am steady and sometimes foolishly brash. The night is wide enough for these things to coexist without forcing me to choose which one I am allowed to be. You teach me that identity is not a rigid label, but a living thread that accommodates change. Help me to speak my contradictions honestly out loud, so they lose their power to confuse me. Let confession be less about condemnation and more about clarity. When anxiety creeps like a quiet animal and begins to make its bed in my thoughts, show me how to refuse hospitality. Give me practical ways to close the door. One measured breath, a counted prayer, a remembered mercy. Teach me to notice the first small sign of spiral and to interrupt it with something real. A call to a friend, a walk outside, the naming of one tangible truth that anchors me to the present. Help me form habits that are tiny and repeatable, so panic finds fewer openings. There are people I wish I had loved better. There are conversations I left incomplete. There are apologies I rehearsed, but never gave. Let this night be a workshop for repair. Give me courage to begin, not because I demand immediate reconciliation, but because small attempts matter. Teach me how to offer repentance that is specific and humble, and how to receive others' repentance with guarded generosity. Let the work of repair be slow and honest, rather than rushed and performative. I want to learn how to keep hope without pressure. Hope should not be a performance. It should be a stance. Show me how to be hopeful without forcing outcomes, how to plant seeds without planting illusions, how to expect fruit without demanding the timing. Let hope be a patient tending rather than a frantic hoping. Train my hands to do the simple, sure work that gardens require. Watering, weeding, waiting with faith. There is a tenderness I have withheld from myself because I feared indulgence. Teach me how to give myself grace in practical ways, to rest when weary, to refuse work when depleted, to eat without guilt, to set aside time to be quiet without schedules. Let self-care be returned to its rightful place as stewardship, not surrender. Help me to see that tending my own soul enables me to tend others. It is not selfishness, but provision. Make me brave to name limits. Often I blur my margins to make others comfortable and end up depleted. Teach me the generosity of healthy boundaries, the kind that allow me to give from abundance rather than from emptiness. Show me how to say no, that protects rather than pushes away, how to hold my yeses mindfully, how to decline with kindness and keep relationships intact. As the night deepens, let me practice a small liturgy of release. One by one, I will loosen the clutch of things I cannot change. Decisions already made, outcomes I do not control, regrets that cannot be rewritten. Let each loosening be accompanied by a breath and a simple trust. I will do my part. You will hold the rest. Make that trust practical, not vague. Let it form habits. A nightly checklist where I name the day's cares and lay them down. A 3-word mantra that returns me to presence. A physical gesture that signals surrender. Finally, teach me the art of being present to others who enter darkness after me. Let the way you sat with me become the model for my small mercies. Showing up before answers, staying longer than is comfortable, honoring silence, offering warmth without agenda. Give me the humility to listen more and to fix less, to be a doorway rather than a lecture, to let companionship be the form of service I practice most. Stay then, as long as I need. Remain the quiet presence that teaches by not doing anything dramatic, the tenderness that rebuilds by simple attending. Let sleep, when it comes, be gentle and restorative. If it does not come, let the wakefulness be a holy keeping, a slow watching with you over the tender places of my heart. You are still here, and because you are here, the dark is no longer a void, but a field where things grow in their own time. I bring the unfinished work of the day. Sentences I didn't speak as kindly as I should have, small omissions that feel larger when the house is quiet, the financial anxieties that tighten at the base of my spine, and I lay them down in the soft of your presence. I am learning, slowly, that laying them down is not surrender to passivity, but an act of discernment. I do what I can and place the rest where hands are steadier than mine. That distinction gives me a practical courage. It frees my hands to mend what I can touch, and my heart to accept that some outcomes are not mine to force. Teach me how to keep a small, honest ledger of the heart, not an account that tallies up worth by productivity, but a list that notices mercy, records one brave sentence offered where silence was easier, marks the minutes I stayed when leaving would have been simpler. Let these entries become evidence of a life tending toward faithfulness rather than a public resume of achievement. When the world rewards spectacle, help me return to the quieter economy where consistency matters more than applause. Let me measure days by the fidelity of small acts, by the patience I showed another human, by the steadiness of my presence in one more ordinary hour. There is a fear that creeps in with the dark, that my smallness will be discovered, that my limits will disqualify me, that my mistakes will outshine my intentions. Sit with that fear until it grows manageable. Show me how to speak to it plainly, not to let it spin stories in secret, but to name it so it shrinks from exposure. Give me language that is useful, a sentence I can say when doubt arrives, a short prayer that is less performance and more anchor. Teach me to keep practices that interrupt spirals, a call to one steady friend, a walk under the sky, a note written and not sent. Small interventions that make fear less tyrannical and my next step clearer. Help me practice fierce compassions for myself. I have been economical with kindness toward my own faults, generous in excusing others, and stingy toward my own tender failures. Teach me to offer myself the same patient corrections I would offer a friend. Specific, actionable, met with hope, not annihilation. Let repentance be a movement toward better choices rather than a punishment that narrows the heart. If I cannot do everything at once, give me the wisdom to choose one small thing to change tomorrow, and the humility to celebrate that single improvement when it happens. Let my nights be training in attention. Teach me to notice the small mercies I once scrolled past, the way a neighbor held a door, the unexpected softness in a loved one's tone, the cup of tea that steadied my hands. Train my gaze to find what is true and good among the clutter, so gratitude becomes habit rather than a reflexive list. If my spirit gains nothing else from this quiet, let it be a keener eye for goodness, not because goodness erases pain, but because naming it balances the ledger and keeps my heart from hardening into cynicism. When morning comes, do not let the lessons of the night evaporate under the bright timetable of duties. Give me one practical thread to carry forward, a phrase to speak when I am hurried, a rhythm to breathe when impatience sharpens, a tiny ritual to ground me before I speak. Let these be small enough to remember and big enough to change the quality of an hour. Keep me mindful that the work of being kind, brave, and present is not spectacular. It is repetitive and quiet. Help me repeat it tomorrow and the next day until the pattern becomes the way I live. Stay with me now until sleep takes what is ready and waits with what is not. Let the hush of your presence be more than comfort. Make it training, provision, and promise. Keep watch over the fragile places in me while I rest. And if I wake before dawn, let my first breath remember that I was held. You are still here, and not in the way I sometimes expect, not to answer, not to rescue, not to rewrite the night into something easier, but to be, to stay, to remain, when everything else folds into silence. And that changes the kind of prayer I pray. I'm no longer reaching for a way out. I'm learning to settle into this quiet with you, not to escape it, but to be reshaped by it. The darkness no longer demands to be solved. It becomes a place of presence. It becomes something holy because you have not left. Tonight I don't need a breakthrough. I need to be softened. I don't need a new beginning. I need to trust that what has already begun in me is not lost, not failing, not wasted. Even the half-finished pieces, the tired yeses, the imperfect love, you sit with them all. You are not discouraged by my unfinished. You are not impatient with how slow I grow. You are patient, even in this hour, when the world sleeps, and I lie awake, wondering whether I've been enough, done enough, loved well enough. You answer none of those questions. You just stay. And that stillness says more than words ever could. There are nights when what I ache for isn't clarity, but peace. Not because I don't care what happens next, but because I've learned that knowing the future doesn't always calm the soul, but knowing you are in it does. So tonight, I give up the urge to forecast my life. I give up the illusion that if I plan hard enough, I can prevent sorrow. I release my white-knuckled grip on the future and let it rest in your hands, not because I'm resigned, but because I'm held. And maybe that's what real surrender is. Not giving up, but giving over. Trusting that you will still be here tomorrow like you are tonight. Steady, kind, unafraid of the dark. Let this hour be a place where I don't have to know, don't have to fix, don't have to be impressive. Let it be the place where I finally allow the heaviness I carry to settle, without fear that I will be crushed by it, because you are beneath it. Beneath the weariness I won't admit, beneath the weight I still try to carry alone, beneath the performance I forget I'm allowed to stop. You are there. You are underneath it all, and you do not move when I falter. You do not leave when I unravel. You stay, still, quiet, present. There are stories I'm still ashamed of, things I haven't told anyone, things I've rewritten in my mind 100 times, trying to soften them, trying to make them sound better, even to myself. I hold them here now, not for judgment, not for punishment, but to bring them into the light of your kindness, not because they deserve to be seen, but because I do, because the version of me who lived those stories also deserves mercy. And if I can't forgive myself for who I was, then I will sit here and let you begin the work of forgiveness for me. I will let you look at the parts of me I can't look at yet. I will trust that one day I'll see myself with the same gentleness you offer even now. Help me not to rush through healing. Some wounds do not close because I keep pretending they already have. But I don't want to cover what needs to breathe. I want to be honest enough to name the pain without giving it the final word. So if grief still lives here, let it speak. If disappointment still stings, let it show itself. Not to dramatize it, not to wallow, but to say, this matters. And you are the God who does not rush past what matters. You don't need me to be over it. You just ask me to bring it here, into the night, into the quiet, into this moment where nothing has to be finished to be seen. I don't know how to love perfectly. I don't always know what the kindest choice is, but I want to try again tomorrow. I want to return to the people I've been given and offer them less of my striving and more of my presence. I want to speak without edge, to listen without correcting, to ask how someone is and really mean it. Not out of obligation, but out of desire to love in the way I'm being loved now, without needing to prove anything. Let this night shape that in me. Let it teach me how to be a safe place, the way you are now, unhurried, unshaken, unafraid to sit in silence, if silence is what's needed. And when I am tempted to believe I'm behind in success, in healing, in purpose, let me remember this quiet. Let me remember that you never measure me against a timeline. You don't keep score of what I've missed. You just walk with me at the pace I can bear. You adjust your steps to mine. And if I stumble, you don't hurry ahead. You kneel beside me and wait until I'm ready. That kind of love unravels every lie I've believed about worth. That kind of patience teaches me how to begin again without shame. So tonight, I breathe differently. Not like someone preparing for battle. Not like someone bracing for impact, but like someone safe, someone kept, someone who is allowed to rest. Not because everything is solved, but because someone else is watching over the pieces. Someone else is holding what I can't. Someone else is not asking me to be strong, only to be honest. And I can do that. I can be honest. I can tell the truth, even if it's quiet, even if it's messy, even if it's just one whispered sentence. I need you to stay, and you do, without condition, without timeline, without exit plan. Stay here a while longer, in the dark, in the silence, in the simple, sacred closeness that doesn't need fixing, only breathing. Keep watch over this soul you know so well, and if I forget tomorrow, remind me I was never alone in the night, not once, not even now. Amen.